Alright, so we bought a...
Never settle down, 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 down. Homie, I will never settle down, 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 down. Homie, I will never settle down, 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 down. Homie, I will never settle down, down.
What's up guys? Today we're going to be installing a handbrake with junction valve on a 2014 CRF250. This is the factory master. We are going to have to modify the bracket area so we'll have room for the junction valve, because the junction valve fits behind there and places where the factory reservoir goes. So we're going to try to go through step by step the best we can. We're not the best at these tutorial videos, but at least you'll get the general idea.
It will be a lot of trial and error.
There will be a lot of trial and error, yes, because this bracket is probably going to be our biggest hurdle. Alright, so we've got the master cylinder unbolted, so basically what we're going to have to do is, to keep the orientation of this so your foot brake still works, is we're going to have to bring it back this way, and we're going to have to build a bracket that'll go from here to there, and still be able to bolt it up so we can make room for the junction valve. So we're going to get to pulling the master cylinder off so we can get the junction valve put on, and then we'll work on making a bracket that'll fit, and so we know we have clearance for both parts. Alright, so we got the master cylinder off, and so now we've got to remove the C-clip so we can remove this and add our junction valve in. Alright, so we have the nipple pulled out, and we will reuse the original seal. So you do want to inspect everything, make sure everything's clean and you don't have any dirt debris in there. So we're going to go ahead and pull this out, and we're going to wipe it down real good before we install the new junction valve. Alright, so we have the junction valve in. Depending on what type of junction valve in this setup, we did pay attention and made sure that the flat surface was going to be towards the back where the plate is going to go. So hopefully that'll help us out when we start mounting it up with our bracket. Alright, so holding this the best that I can, it looks like this is about where we're going to have to be able to make clearance to be able to have the line and everything on, which of course you have to put your line on before we actually bolt this to the bracket, but that is about what we're looking at for a bracket, roughly. So while we were waiting on our bracket to dry, because we're going to put a little bit of color on it so it's not so bare, we're going to go ahead and show you guys how we're going to run our brake line all the way up to the handlebars. We're not really for sure exactly how we're going to do it. We're going to show you every step of the way, even if we mess up. Alright, while our bracket is waiting to dry with paint, we're going to go ahead and run the line and show you guys which route we use to do it. First thing you want to do is you want to unbolt your front fairing, and you'll have 1, 2, 3 bolts and a push tab right back there, and you can just pull this up out of the way, and that way you'll have access back in here. You can remove the whole thing, but we have wired switched here, so we're going to go ahead and just do it this route. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring it up through the bottom,
And you're going to go through your factory line position where your old reservoir was.
you'll go up and over the frame part here, and then around the back side.
There you go. Through all the electronics. Pull out what you need.
Just get it pulled out to where it's relatively close. We'll be able to use the slack from here. And then you want to tuck it on that side of the plastic so it can go on that clip there. Before you clip it,
We're
be
going to
sure to
go
loop around your fork.
through the fork.
The fork there.
Alright.
Okay. And then you want to bring it up through that
Through
holder
the throttle
there.
cable holder. And then we're going to be looping around and attaching to our handbrake. There is more line than you see, it's just, yeah.
And that's the method that we're using to run.
We're going to do the double rainbow brake line.
Here we have our handbrake. We have the Brembo RCS 19. with the foldable lever. Isn't that thing just a beauty? And we got stickers. Alright, so we bought a right hand brake, so we're going to switch it over to a left hand brake. What we do is we take the bleeder valve and we're going to remove it from here and switch it to the other side. It is a 7/16, so we'll go ahead and swap that around real quick. Alright, first thing we'll do is we want to go ahead and mount the handbrake.
Find the right orientation that you like it. And, well, actually,
this is just a temporary mount for now. I'll explain to you why.
the size that we're using is a 5/16. Is the proper size for this job.
Alright, so now that we got that a little bit snug, you want to check and make sure that your clutch lever is not going to hit or obscure anything. You want to get it in the position that you would like to have it. Another thing you'd like to adjust is how far out or how close the handle is. Here we can adjust it out more. So you want to put your hand on the handbrake and position yourself like you're almost on the bike to where it's in a comfortable position.
Yeah. Oh, just come out more.
Bring it out a little more. You want to make sure that you can reach it, but you still have enough room to create a very good pull.
Yep.
Alright, so now that we have the lever pull distance that we like, and we see the position that we want to go ahead and unbolt this again.
Yep.
Alright, and then we want to take it and want to mount it back on the handlebars to where the master cylinder is fairly level with the ground. And we want to do this for bleeding purposes. Alright, so we've got our line hooked up to our handbrake. We went ahead and filled our reservoir up. And what we want to do, since we're running a junction valve, is we want to go ahead and fill this handbrake line up and have fluid come out of it before we hook it up to the junction valve. So in order to do that, while the handbrake lever is out, you'll pull it in, and then you'll have somebody close off the line and release the handbrake lever. And repeat this process. Alright, and you want to make sure that your handbrake reservoir does not go empty in this process.
Because that would be a waste.
Then you're wasting your time. So, you fill it all the way to the top.
Yep.
It's hard to do when you're holding the camera. And repeat the process. Open.
Alright.
Close it.
We're good.
Close it.
Alright. Okay. So after you leak half your brake fluid onto the floor, you're going to connect your brake line to your banjo bolt and onto the junction valve. This junction valve we're using is from our good friend over at 402 Innovations. After we get that installed, we're going to be installing our handmade bracket. We're going to be using the existing hardware for the master cylinder. Sorry. You'll be using your new hardware to mount the bracket that we just scratched on. Your amp meter. We're going to be installing our brake line to the actual caliper. Make sure everything's lined up properly before you torque it to spec. Click. You're ready to begin bleeding. So next you're going to want to get a rubber hose to fit over your bleeder valve, just so it makes cleanup easy. You're going to get an 8mm wrench, and then you're ready to bleed.
Now that we have our line filled with fluid mostly, we're going to go ahead and start with the bleeding part. What we're going to do is take our handbrake, the first one we're going to bleed. We're going to pump this up a few times. And you're going to hold it in while somebody, a good buddy, breaks open the bleeder valve.
You're good.
And then he will close it back off. You'll release the handbrake and repeat that process. Alright, you want to do the handbrake about 5 times, and then you want to switch and you want to try to bleed the foot brake. So, same concept. Pump the foot brake. Hold it down while somebody cracks the bleeder valve.
Alright, so right now we're getting some pretty good sized bubbles. And what that is that's air is in the line, so it keeps it from pretty much locking up your tire and not functioning. And it also means we're getting closer to being done.
Alright, so once you have bled your foot brake and your handbrake 5 times, you'll want to come up and bleed the master cylinder. We've already did that, and our batteries have died, so we can record it. However, it's the same concept as bleeding the foot and the handbrake. You'll pump the brake, open the valve, close the valve once the handbrake bottoms out, and repeat that process until all the air is out of the lines. So now that we have that done, we can actually use the handbrake, and it stops well. We can also use the foot brake, and it stops really well too. Now let's just say you hit a panic moment and you got to use both of them at the same time. We want to show you that both of them at the same time will work. So now we just got to tidy everything back up, make sure our lines are good and tight, get our clutch lever put back together because we're going to need that.
I'll just rock it like this.
And we'll go for a quick test ride.
Doing what I do on the regular.
Alright, so we cut.
You want me to talk?
So why are we
gonna cut all that out?
We're gonna get her done.
We're gonna get her done! Alright, so we're gonna start here.
I feel like I need. I gotta put gloves on.
Here we have our handbrake. We have the Bromo.
Alright, so after you leak half of your brake fluid onto the floor.
Cut.
Wow, that's short this time.